3 rolls of equipment have been repulsed. For the assault in 3 rounds, the invaders attracted tanks, armored personnel carriers, infantry fighting vehicles, and MTLB. Units of the 3rd assault immediately hit the column with drones and disabled some of the armored vehicles. The surviving tank that tried to break through was caught up with the FPV. 2 more tanks and a better hit stopped traffic, and on the move finished off those who wanted to escape. Numerical equipment was dismantled only by drones. Attacks were successfully repelled. Fighters Fatum from the anti-tank, Primus from the 1st assault, fighters of the 2nd assault, Revenge Group from the 1st Mechanized Battalion, and our BBS continue to destroy the enemy on Kharkiv region. Russian troops had hidden drones in the bunker. However, Ukrainian FPV drones discovered this and blew up the bunker. After the explosion, a soldier fled into the woods but was attacked by a FPV drone. It is almost impossible to hide from drones either outdoors or indoors, because thanks to the advanced heat-sensitive cameras of the drones, all kinds of vehicles and living things are caught by the cameras. As a result of successive drone attacks, Russian troops suffered a lot of losses. Be sure to write your thoughts in the comments. Fierce clashes between Ukrainian troops and North Korean troops continue. In the Kursk region, reconnaissance drones of the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces counterattacked the North Korean soldiers they detected. According to news sources, 21 North Korean soldiers were killed and 40 were wounded. Reconnaissance drones gave coordinates to Ukrainian soldiers. This allowed the soldiers to fire directly at their targets. It was a hot battle, both from the air and on the ground. Ukrainian paratroopers repel attacks by Russian troops in Kurshina. Russian troops conducting several operations at the same time have become targets of FPV drones and artillery shelling. Several Russian vehicles and bunkers were destroyed in hot battles in the Kursk region. Russian troops are sending armored vehicles and assault group infantry to increase their influence in the region. Artillery fire, cluster bombs, and drones have repelled the attacks. Shelters and motorcycles were destroyed by drones. Cluster bombs are very effective in stopping infantry and forcing them to retreat. Infantry hiding in ruined houses and underground bunkers could not escape FPV drones. An effective operation was carried out with FPV drones against Russian vehicles that went to help the soldiers in the region with heavily armored vehicles. An armored vehicle hidden among the trees and moving vehicles were neutralized with precision strikes. defenders successfully repelled a massive enemy attack on the position of the 10th OGS HBR. The enemy used 22 units of armored vehicles, 7 tanks, 13 BMP, 2 MTLB, and about 120 occupiers for assault operations. As a result of battle, 6 tanks and 9 BMPs were destroyed. The enemy suffered losses in manpower. 19 were eliminated, 23 were wounded. In the direction of Sumy, FPV drones destroyed Russian shelters and equipment. Footage from a drone at the Sudza checkpoint in the Kursk region of Russia, showing the capture of Russian conscripts. A large drone with fiber optical communication hits a Russian armored vehicle with a direct hit. The crew quickly gets out of the damaged vehicle and escapes. Then the second drone attack takes place and the vehicle is completely destroyed. In the direction of Toretsk, tanks of the 12th Azov Brigade attacked Russian positions. In areas where artillery fire is difficult and drones are difficult to attack, the tanks maneuvered well and launched powerful attacks. The Azov Brigade has played an important role in the conflict in eastern Ukraine and has attracted international attention, both for its military achievements and ideological debates. It was established in 2014 as a volunteer militia to fight against pro-Russian separatists and was later incorporated into the National Guard of Ukraine. Two Russian soldiers got inside the damaged BMP to hide from the FPV drone, but they did not know that it is impossible to escape from the FPV drone. And finally, it happened. As Russian tanks and armored vehicles advanced in columns, they were shaken by artillery shelling from the 47th Mechanized Brigade. Communicating with drones, the 47th Artillery attacked Russian armored vehicles with 122mm howitzers and mortars. The armored vehicle, which panicked during the attack, went off the road and turned over. The drones provided accurate calculations and information, which enabled the artillery to strike with pinpoint accuracy. The Russian troops were dispersed and repulsed. In the direction of Vovchansk, the artillery of the Garth Brigade of the Border Guards fired almost continuously day and night. Shelters and firing positions were accurately hit and destroyed or severely damaged. Among the places destroyed were a warehouse with an electric generator, dense concentrations of personnel, ammunition, supplies, and various equipment. Drones play an important role in the positioning of artillery. In the Kursk region, Ukrainian drones are burning Russian ammunition, supplies, and various military equipment in forested areas. This fire-breathing drone is used to destroy anything hidden in the woods. What do you think about the direction drones are taking the war in general? FPV drones destroyed and neutralized Russian vehicles one by one in the direction of Pokrovsky. These vehicles were on their way to provide supplies and equipment to Russian troops. There were many armed soldiers inside the vehicles. Russian tank convoy units are moving quickly to attack Ukrainian positions. It's very hot and close, and the troops are engaging. Air and ground troops from both countries are engaged in intense fighting. Meanwhile, Ukrainian drone operators, working in concert with artillery units, are firing heavy artillery shells at Russian tanks. At the same time, Ukrainian FPV drones are attacking Russian tanks one after another. Russian soldiers whose tanks are damaged are hiding in bunkers and wooded areas. After the Russian infantry fighting vehicle was spotted by Ukrainian paratroopers, it was immediately attacked in quick succession. The Russian vehicle, which then tried to hide in the bushes, was rendered unusable as a result of repeated drone strikes. US APC and Russian BMP vehicles were neutralized from these attacks. Ukrainian FPV drones hit the targets they detect with precision strikes. It is almost impossible to escape from FPV drones. Because drones do not get tired, they do not take a break. If you are confronted with a professional drone operator, you will be lucky to escape. How much have FPV drones affected the course of the war? Is there any way to stop FPV drones? What measures can soldiers take to avoid or neutralize drones? For this moped rider in the Kursk region, this trip was the last. Your drone was effectively used by soldiers of the 3rd DSHB of the 80th Galician Brigade. In the Kursk region, the UAV battalion of the Nikolaev Marine Corps destroyed several Russian tanks and armored infantry vehicles. These operators, who destroyed tanks and armored vehicles with precision strikes in one go, trained for many hours. They also destroyed mortars, tents, and bunkers with UAVs. Russian troops suffered a lot of damage in these successive attacks. Russian mechanized attacks in the Pokrovsky direction were repelled by professional FPV drone pilots. This tank convoy was neutralized by drone strikes and bombs dropped by the drones. Let's watch how a small drone burns an armored vehicle with a small explosion. In the Kursk region, drones of the 47th Mechanized Brigade are destroying all tanks, armored personnel carriers, motorcycles, and cars in their path. It takes a lot of skill to hit moving vehicles with pinpoint accuracy. These very small FPV drones are very fast and highly maneuverable. Tank shells were fired at Russian positions at close range. However, the Russian soldiers have already left the positions. I assume that the positions and bunkers were bombed again as a precautionary measure. Drone operators of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region attack and destroy armored vehicles of North Korean troops. 3 North Korean armored infantry vehicles are destroyed. In the northern direction, Ukrainian border guards destroyed a Russian infantry fighting vehicle. The drone operator entered the vehicle with the door open and ensured that the vehicle was destroyed by fire. A Russian Lancet model kamikaze drone was destroyed by Polish paratroopers. This image is of a Ukrainian FPV drone hunting other Russian drones over Ukraine. Unexpectedly, the Ukrainian drone is armed with a shotgun. In a stroke of genius, the shotgun manages to destroy other enemy drones in mid-air when they least expect it. Every day, new and different technological tools appear on the battlefield. The battlefield is moving towards an era where only robots fight. Whoever thought of shooting down drones in the air in this way, I am sure that we will see drones equipped with much more diverse and different weapons in the future. A Ukrainian Air Force MiG-29 strikes a multi-story building housing Russian Armed Forces personnel in the settlement of Korobki, Kherson region, using an AASM-250 Hammer bomb. With a good calculation, a Ukrainian FPV drone pilot epically blew up a Russian BM-21 Grad rocket launcher. How do you think a small FPV drone manages such a big explosion? I guess it's probably because the missiles on the RPG vehicle exploded, and that's why there was such a big explosion. Russian armored vehicles, tanks, and vehicles for various purposes were destroyed at the Yantarny location. The tanks and armored personnel carriers were attacked one after the other in a coordinated effort by the operators of the FPV drones. The explosives on the FPV drones do not have great power, but if they can target the right spot on the tanks or armored vehicles, they can destroy the vehicles. Especially since FPV drones have a low cost and are used for many different purposes, they are used very frequently on the battlefield. The destruction of the Russian MTLB, the multi-purpose light armored vehicle, as a result of several drone attacks in the direction of Vovchansk. This Russian vehicle is used for the transportation of military personnel, but it is also used to tow artillery systems. It is also used for different purposes to provide logistical support. Ukrainian forces, using FPV drones and artillery, are repelling a massive Russian assault near the village of Plekova in the Kursk region. Almost all vehicles and crew of the Russian convoy are destroyed. These expensive Russian vehicles were destroyed by seemingly simple but very effective FPV drones. Of course, Ukraine does not only carry out drone attacks, but FPV drones are a low-cost, very fast, and very effective weapon. It is almost impossible for soldiers to escape by running or hiding. During recent assault operations, the Russians used a lightly armored communication vehicle that also served as a repeater as it was thought, our scouts found, and FPV-shniki destroyed the field communication point. Another defeat of a Russian helicopter using a FPV drone. Soldiers of the M2 unit of the Special Operations Center of the SBU, working in the Kursk region of Russia, were able to hit another Russian helicopter with a FPV drone. This time, the Mi-8 was hit in the tail by a drone with a powerful fragmentation warhead. The further fate of the Mi-8 is unknown, but it stopped operating in the area. On the Kupiansk front, Ukraine's 14th Mechanized Brigade destroyed 2 Russian MT-LBS advancing towards Ukrainian positions. All the crews got out of the vehicles and started fleeing towards trenches and shelters. If you can use FPV drones correctly and skillfully, you can destroy or render unusable even million-dollar vehicles in one hit. Using drones on the battlefield requires real skill. Footage of FPV drone attack on transport vehicle in Kharkiv region. Destroyed with a single hit after precise calculation. Near Vovchansk, border guards attacked Russian positions, bunkers, drone launch points, fuel and mining depots with artillery. The positions of the Russian positions were reported to the artillery units by Ukrainian drone operators. After careful calculations, the artillery destroyed the Russian positions one by one. As a result of these successive attacks, the Russians suffered considerable damage. Without the drones, the artillery would not have been so accurate. This has been the case in the past. After the advent of drone technology, the course of the war changed completely. Soldiers of the Black Forest Brigade destroy enemy ammunition depots. Each such explosion is a long-term reduction in the enemy's capabilities on the battlefield, the brigade said in a statement. Russian troops trying to advance in the Kursk region were caught by Ukrainian FPV drone operators. Ukrainian attack drone operators went to the coordinates given by reconnaissance drones and attacked Russian armored vehicles. A Russian tank burned down after several FPV drone attacks. The Russian crew, whose vehicles were destroyed, tried to hide in bunkers, shelters, and ruined houses. However, Ukrainian drones continued to attack one after another. The 72nd Separate Mechanized Brigade hit a vehicle standing alone on the road with an FPV drone, and it was destroyed by fire. With the accurate calculations of FPV drones, the ruined houses and bunkers where Russian soldiers were staying were blown up one by one. Since the FPV drones have good visibility both day and night, it is almost impossible to escape from the heat-sensitive cameras. Abandoned vehicle destroyed after FPV drone attack on moving Russian vehicle. In the Zaporozhye region, a Russian Buk M3 medium-range air defense system was attacked and destroyed twice by a Ukrainian FPV drone while traveling alone on the road. The skills of Ukrainian soldiers leave no chance for the Russian invaders. Tanks are blown up by mines and FPV drones. For the operation in the Kursk region, the Russians have organized a large contingent. The assault team includes more than 50 soldiers, nearly 10 armored vehicles, and more than 5 tanks. The plan was to attack Ukrainian positions and destroy warehouses, armored vehicles, howitzers, bunkers, and tanks. When the Russian units set off for the attack, the 47th Mechanized Brigade realized the whole plan and counterattacked with drones and howitzers. Ukrainian defense forces used all their strength to push the Russian unit back. Reconnaissance drones reported the positions of tanks and armored vehicles to artillery units. At the same time, attack drones quickly mobilized and started attacking the vehicles. 3 tanks worth $6.6 million destroyed. 7 infantry fighting vehicles worth $7.7 million were destroyed. Some of the crews inside the vehicles could not get out of the vehicles. Some of them hid in forested areas. The liquidation of Russian BMP and an armored personnel carrier on the Zaporozhye front. What do you think about the place of FPV drones in modern warfare? Ukrainian FPV drone paratroopers carried out a well-calculated attack on bunkers and warehouses. Even though the drones did not penetrate the bunker, they terrorized the people inside. The bunkers contain infantry and various military equipment. Since the explosives on the drones are not enough to blow up the bunkers, they cannot completely destroy the bunkers. A Ukrainian fighter jet strikes the location of Russian soldiers in Kherson region with high-precision AASM-250 hammer bombs. The Russian assault group in the Kursk region was routed thanks to a precise hit from a Javelin crew of the 36th Separate Marine Brigade. Russian troops trying to advance in the Kursk region were subjected to successive drone and artillery howitzer attacks. Ukrainian drone operators, who continued their mortar attacks uninterruptedly, repelled the Russian troops. Russian troops suffered significant losses in these attacks. In particular, their weapons and military equipment and various material resources were destroyed. Soldiers who got out of the attacked armored vehicles hid in shelters and forest areas. However, the advanced technologies on FPV drones are capable of seeing everything that moves. No matter how strong the protection of the tank or armored vehicle you are using, if the FPV drone manages to hit the sensitive point of the vehicle, it is impossible not to be destroyed. Russian troops trying to advance have retreated for now as a result of the Ukrainian airstrike. In the direction of Vovchansk, Russian equipment, communication systems, vehicles, and various military equipment were destroyed or rendered unusable by Ukrainian FPV drones as a result of good calculations. One of the most important things on the battlefield is communication systems. The fastest and easiest way to destroy the enemy's communication systems is to use drones. Because it is almost impossible to send soldiers there, but it is very easy to achieve this with a $500 drone. Russia launched a massive offensive in Kharkiv Oblast, OTU Kharkiv. 42 OMBR was ready for this and repels the enemy's assault. Bu Hafta. Russian losses at least: 13 dead soldier, 27 injured occupiers, 2 units T-62 tanks were destroyed, 2 units T-62 tanks were damaged, 2 units BMP-3 destroyed, 1 armored personnel carrier damaged. Soldiers of the Baltic Group in the Pokrovsky direction are attacking targets with drones in huts and basements where they are hiding. Russian personnel sent a large number of military armored vehicles and personnel to the area. Head-to-head, soldiers of both countries clashed. Then Ukrainian drones attacked the Russian soldiers. Russian soldiers were attacked by drones in the ruined houses and huts where they were hiding. While the Russian troops were pushed back, other soldiers who remained in the square were attacked by massive drone strikes. The attacks were carried out one after the other without a break. I think drones are the most powerful weapon of modern warfare because they have a very cheap cost. They are very fast. They have a destructive effect. They do not get tired, and they have more features than we can count. A well-trained drone operator can destroy armored vehicles worth millions of dollars even with a single hit. But it is almost impossible for a $1 million tank to evade it. Artillery brigades in the east neutralized Russian vehicles and ammunition trying to advance. Intense shelling forced the Russian troops to retreat and destroyed vehicles on the battlefield. As a result of the good calculations of the FPV drones, the artillery destroyed the tanks with a single shot. Soldiers hiding in wooded areas and bunkers were forced to retreat by intense artillery shelling. Then, with the rapid attacks of the FPV drones, the soldiers in the trenches and bunkers in the forest areas were hit. This morning, the Russians tried to break through the positions of the 15th Karadag Brigade south of Selidovo. All the equipment was destroyed. The infantry was eliminated. There is replenishment of the exchange fund. If any of the Russian tanks and any of the Ukrainian tanks face to face, which tank would win? To support our channel, you can click the join button or send a super donation. One Russian BMP was completely destroyed, as always, with only one FPV drone. It is possible to destroy these vehicles, which cost thousands or even millions of dollars, with cheap drones. In Kharkiv region, border guards hit 3 cars, 3 bunkers, and 1 communication vehicle. I think the most horrible moment of attack on the battlefield is by drones, because drones are almost impossible to see with human eyes. Because drones are small and very fast, they can show up at any moment and attack you when you least expect it. Even though drones are a small technological tool, they can cause great damage when used correctly. A Russian infantryman hiding alone in a hut was shocked when a drone suddenly exploded. Fortunately, the drone exploded in the wall, so the soldier was slightly injured. He got up and left. A group of Russian soldiers are in the back of the truck. A Ukrainian reconnaissance drone monitors the situation and reports it to the attack drone. Then, without wasting any time, the attack drone quickly attacks the vehicle and destroys it by burning it. Fighting continues in the Kursk region. Russian troops organized plans to attack the 47th Brigade. However, Russian troops were repulsed by drones. FPV operators, in cooperation with spotters and aerial reconnaissance teams, relentlessly attacked the Russians. Russian tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, ATVs, Kamaz trucks, burrows, and bunkers were destroyed. Ukrainian FPV operators fought against Russian troops in the Kursk region. If you can use FPV drones correctly, you can destroy almost all vehicles. The moving motorcyclist and the tank were blown up by FPV drones. An armored vehicle hidden among the trees was also blown up. The old mobile service station was neutralized by drones immediately after detection. Ukrainian paratroopers carried out a drone attack on a vehicle in the direction of Kharkiv. The infantrymen in the vehicle drove away, entering a densely forested area. A second drone attack was carried out on the vehicle left by the infantrymen, and the vehicle was destroyed. A drone operator who noticed a Russian vehicle abandoned on the road but in working condition attacked and destroyed it. The Russians were planning to attack Ukrainian positions with Safari ATVs. The attack UAV operators of the 12th Special Purpose Brigade Azov spotted the plan and immediately sent UAVs to the area, pushing the Russians back. As a result of the UAV strikes, the Russian contingent, which was planning to raid kululs, trenches, and warehouses, was dispersed. ATVs were destroyed. Many infantrymen hid. Ukrainian air defense drone operators destroyed the Russian Buk M1 anti-aircraft missile system. The cost of such an air defense system is close to $10 million on average. Target engagement range 3 to 35 kilometers. Target engagement altitude between 15 meters and 22 kilometers. It uses the 9M38 missile and is a radar-guided system. HIMARS cluster munitions operation. The Russians tried to storm this section of the front for several days in a row. Thanks to the efforts of the headquarters of the 225th Separate Assault Battalion, an operation was developed that provided for creating conditions for inflicting fire damage and clearing this sector. The key point was the precise timing of each stage of the action. When the enemy, believing in his success, pulled significant forces into this square, they were targeted with cluster munitions from HIMARS. The Russians, who planned to storm the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces with a column of armored vehicles consisting of 3 tanks and infantry fighting vehicles, were repulsed thanks to the accuracy of Ukrainian FPV drone operators. The Russian unit, whose vehicles and equipment were destroyed, was forced to retreat. The crew, whose vehicles were damaged, wanted to hide in shelters in forested areas after getting out of the vehicle. However, FPV drones tracked them, and the shelters were bombed by howitzers. It is almost impossible to escape from FPV drones. Thanks to their advanced cameras and heat-sensitive thermal cameras, they can always hit their targets accurately. In this video, a tank, 4 cannons, 4 vehicles, 5 120mm mortars, 1 motorcycle, and 1 dozen soldiers were neutralized. Kramatorsk direction. The 46th OAEMBR continues to repulse large-scale enemy mechanized assaults in the Kharkiv direction. Destroyed, damaged by FPV drones, 7 BMP, and 3 tanks. The infantry was eliminated by drops from the thermal imaging MAVICs. In the direction of Kramatorsk, Ukrainian drone operators launched a FPV drone attack on a Russian armored vehicle and destroyed it. They also dropped bombs from the air. The moving vehicle was attacked by a drone and had to pull over to the side of the road. It was then completely destroyed as a result of the bombs dropped one after the other. These professional Ukrainian FPV drone pilots completely destroyed Russian vehicles, 7 passenger cars, 1 truck, ATV, a few Katsapov, 2 armored vehicles, a PC and tank, 5 more passenger cars, and many more vehicles and their ammunition were blown up or neutralized. We left 2024 behind and entered 2025. How much do you think these FPV drones have changed the course of the war? Is it fair that 500 FPV drones blow up million-dollar vehicles and tanks? In the Seversky direction, Ukrainian drone operators repelled a large group of Russian motorcyclists. The drone attack started on the group of motorcyclists gathered together. Then the group dispersed, and one by one they were targeted by drones. Soldiers hiding in shelters and among trees failed to escape the drones. The entire group was neutralized. Ukrainian drone operators destroyed the Russian cars they spotted one by one. Some vehicles were destroyed while in motion. It is a very difficult task, especially to completely destroy a moving vehicle, because vehicles have sensitive points. If you manage to hit the vehicles at sensitive points, then you can completely destroy them. Otherwise, you will only cause damage. That's why FPV operators receive hours of training. In the Kharkiv region, several soldiers trying to hide in a damaged building were spotted by FPV drones, and the building was blown up in a drone attack. Soldiers were injured. The pickup truck used by the soldiers was neutralized. A Russian tank moving through the trees could not escape the Ukrainian FPV drone operator. The drone, moving through the trees with agile maneuvers, hit the tank with a direct hit. Then the second drone attack took place, and the tank was destroyed by fire. The Russian troops planned their attack and set out to attack. But there was one thing they did not take into account or forgot. Ukrainian reconnaissance planes were following them step by step. The leading Russian motorized infantry got scared after a few bombings and turned and fled. When the decision was made to retreat, the Russian armored vehicle also turned to go back. That's when the armored vehicle was blown up by an artillery howitzer attack. T-90 cooks off after taking a blast from a drone. He blew up the BMP with a precision strike in the Kharkiv region. The BTR-82 is a modern Russian-made armored personnel carrier. It is an improved version of the Soviet-era BTR-80. It is designed for both ground and amphibious operations and is currently in military use in many countries. The BTR-82 was destroyed by fire after a FPV drone attack. Ukrainian reconnaissance drones reported the coordinates of the lone Russian tank to attack drones. The attack drone then quickly attacked the front of the tank and destroyed it with a single strike. Ukrainian FPV drone units continue to target and destroy Russian vehicles loaded with ammunition and supplies. Destruction of a rare Russian Nona SVK self-propelled artillery on a BTR-80 chassis. With fewer than 20 units left in Russia's arsenal, this one was destroyed by an FPV drone pilot from the Birds of Magyar unit. The Ukrainian drone operators unit follows a Russian tank on a lonely road with a FPV drone using fiber optic communication. Then it accelerates, gets in front of it, and attacks without waiting. Why do you think this operator chose to attack the tank from the front? Russian soldiers whose tanks caught fire planned to hide in a bunker to escape the drones. But the drones were following them step by step. After they entered the bunker, the drones exploded. Other drones attacked Russian vehicles trying to rescue Russian soldiers from the area. In the direction of Kurakov, Russian soldiers hid in a building. A soldier looking out of the window was attacked by an FPV drone. In modern warfare, you can be attacked by a drone at any moment, so you have to be much more careful. A group of Russian soldiers are in a damaged building. These soldiers are firing heavy machine guns at a Ukrainian tank. The tank opened fire, targeting Russian troops in the building. A drone attack on the building followed. The Ukrainian tank fired consecutive cannon shots at the Russian troops in the building. A joint effort by Ukraine's 36th Marine Brigade and the 414th Unmanned Attack Aircraft Systems Birds of Magyar Battalion destroys Russian heavy equipment. If you are in an armored vehicle, just because your vehicle is armored does not mean that you are safe. Yes, this armor can protect you from many attacks. However, if the FPV drone hits the sensitive point of your armored vehicle, it is almost impossible for the vehicle not to be destroyed. Similar situations occur in these images. Some vehicles are destroyed, others are slightly damaged. Soldiers usually get out of the slightly damaged vehicle. After the soldiers get out, they try to escape to safe places. But that's when the FPV drones attack the soldiers. Both countries use this tactic. Russian troops are attacking Ukrainian positions with all the means at their disposal. Rocket launchers, artillery, cars, motorcycles, scooters, and many more. This Russian vehicle, very visible in the open terrain, was hit with a precision strike by a Ukrainian drone. The whole crew tried to escape from the vehicle, which then caught fire, but without success. FPV drones have blown up and disabled several trucks carrying personnel and food. In addition, FPV drones hit radars and antennas, damaging Russian communications. Moreover, the drones also hit a tractor used in the construction of fortifications. Javelin in the area of Seledovo liquidates the Russian tank T-72B3M. How resistant do you think Russian tanks are to incoming attacks? Is it normal for them to explode with every missile or drone attack? Write in the comments. The mechanic of the Russian armored vehicle, retreating from the battlefield, faces his own friendly armored personnel carrier. After the collision and stops, both cars turn out to be a light target for Ukrainian kamikaze drones. A drone attack on a gas station in the Zaporizhia region. A huge flame rose into the sky as gasoline and diesel tanks exploded. This station was supplying gasoline to Russian vehicles and crews. A Russian anti-tank vehicle in the Kursk region hit a road mine while traveling and was destroyed by a massive explosion.